Um, I only really discovered Sabby Sabs in 2021, but of course you've been doing this a while. So I want to learn a little bit about, your journalism career and how you got here and how we got to having this conversation today. I'd love to hear your side of that. So I'm going to let you talk and that's what this is about, to learn about you.
Sure. So I majored in broadcast journalism in undergrad. Um, didn't find a job in broadcast journalism after undergrad. I graduated during that time of, let's just say the economy was very bad during that time. Did a couple internships, ended up working in healthcare. That's how I found out about the healthcare system in this country and how horrible the insurance companies are. And then I ended up going to grad school for higher education administration, academic advisor for a little over 10 years. And then I wanted to still like pursue my passion, which was like journalism, broadcast journalism. So I started doing so through YouTube in the beginning because I was living in the city. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, well, outside of Boston, Massachusetts now. And I really didn't have the space and I didn't have the equipment to do a show the way that I wanted to. I lived on a very busy street. It was loud. There was a lot of construction. So I started on YouTube actually doing vlogs and doing how-to videos. And I educated people about higher education, how to get into some of these colleges, basically educational videos. The plan was always to eventually move to a podcast format once I had the space and once I had the equipment. And then when we moved during the pandemic, I was like, yes, I finally have the space and the equipment to do what I really want to do. And so that's when I started to do that transition. I've watched independent media for years. And one of the things that I noticed that I felt was missing is that there weren't enough women, there weren't enough African Americans. I felt like this space was primarily dominated by white men who were speaking for marginalized groups. And I felt like it's important for people to hear from those marginalized groups. So that's why I started to do this. I was a big Bernie supporter. Obviously, you guys probably figured that out, but I was a big Bernie supporter. And I was ultimately crushed when Bernie suspended his campaign. And I felt that same kind of disappointment that I felt with President Obama, somebody I thought that was actually really going to come in and implement change. He did not do that, obviously, as we saw. And Bernie, for me, was like a second hope in a way. And I thought, okay, maybe this time it's actually going to happen. So I definitely wanted to do a show to give like my opinion and my perspective about the two-party system, electoral politics, and the money that's involved. And I think it's important that people focus more so on the money and not so much on the personalities.
Definitely. And so you started streaming and you started doing YouTube political stuff really after the Bernie campaign kind of gave up in 2020. Is that when it was? 2021? When did you start doing the Sabby Sabs show, like more politics than educational stuff?
It was January 2021. It was actually right after Force the Vote. I started off interviewing activists and grassroots candidates that were running through the Democratic Party, through progressive Democrats, basically. I started off interviewing those people and activists like Savage Joy, um, Christina Livio came on, Chris
Mhm.
Smalls. So I started off in that realm. And I didn't do live streams back then. I only did uploads like on YouTube. And what I found along the way is that uploads, like the editing, it requires a lot of work. It doesn't work well for the algorithm. And then I switched over to a live stream format and started doing news along with interviews as well.
Oh, that's great. And we're all grateful that you did, because you're definitely one of my favorites to watch, I got to tell you. Um, Again, we cover about 150 different outlets between YouTube and print journalism. You bring strong takes on a regular basis. I have to say, and you're not afraid to disagree with somebody or to say something unpopular, and we totally respect and appreciate that. Again, that's great. And again, I appreciate you talking about a little bit about how you got here. I'd love to learn a little bit about how you met CJ and JB, was that all kind of through the Bernie movement, and how you guys figured out to come together as a group and a network, and that whole rise, of course, is fascinating to me as somebody who recently put some independent streamers together for a network. So that was one question that was on my mind, pressing more than anything, was exactly how did you guys all come together and then decide, hey, we should do this? Because thank you for doing it, by the way.
Yeah, so I met all of them on Twitter. Actually, it's really interesting. We haven't met in person. Well, some of us have met in person, but we're in different time zones in different states. But I met them on Twitter. The first one I met was Rome, and at that point, I think his Twitter tag was look, a black atheist. And he was saying a lot of things that I felt, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I really need to get him to come on. So Rome was actually one of my first guests that came onto my show, and he was talking about force the vote and the importance of force the vote and why it was important that the squad should have done that. So I met Rome first on Twitter, then I met Nick, and Nick again, he canvassed for Bernie Sanders. He was talking a lot about that on Twitter, and then after that came like CJ and RJ and all of them, everyone from the beginning of RBN, that was back when it was FHL.
Sure.
That's how I met them. And then I invited CJ on my show when he was talking about the Bernie Sanders movement, and he said something that really resonated with me. You shouldn't have a movement through an electoral campaign. And he had a list of reasons as to why and what Bernie did and why that didn't work. And that really kind of woke me up in a sense, because I think a lot of us we liked Bernie's movement and we agreed with him on the issues, but I don't think we really stopped and thought, well, what happens if Bernie doesn't win? What happens to this movement? And that was something that CJ noticed, and he talked about that often. So that's how that all happened. We did meet on Twitter, and I think we just all clicked, which is interesting because I've met people in person that I can see and interact with on a weekly basis, and we don't click the way that all of us did, and we met online.
I got to tell you, the number of people that I've talked to that have been inspired by you guys doing mutual aid and that now are doing it themselves, sharing, amplifying, understanding the importance, of course, but really just how easy it actually is to do and to make a difference in somebody else's life, a big difference. And it's the person sitting next to you that you can actually see and feel and have impact on. And I think a lot of people just weren't even thinking about that, to be honest, until you guys started talking about that on a regular basis. Look, there are people that are sitting next to you that need the help, and let's start by helping them instead of thinking about necessarily these huge problems. And that's a credit to CJ, credit to all of the folks over at RBN and FHL. And I really think that was one of the biggest, strongest messages that all of you brought out, that and the activism work. And of course, Afeni as part of the group, and she came on like a house of fire as well. And you've introduced so many new names and faces and people and ideas into the space just this year. Honestly, I think that that group, your group, has been kind of a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, and it's gone through some challenges, and everybody does. And but I'll tell you, I think in the end you've come out stronger, and look what you put together with the General Strike Summit over 3 days. And I got, again, just kudos and aces to the way that this meteoric rise has happened in just a short period of time.